Hello again and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse and I am back for another hardware review video. It's taken a little bit longer than I originally intended, but I am back for an Apple Watch Series 8 review here. I've had the watch now for probably a month, 2 months actually. I know I've been a little bit slow, it's just been super busy lately. But I've definitely had enough time to put it through its paces, and so here is the review. This year, Apple came out with a few different watches. They have the Apple Watch Series 8, which comes in your 42 and 45 millimeter sizes. You have your, I can't remember what the original one, the small, it's like an SE, I believe it is. So it's kind of your entry-level watch. And then you have your Apple Watch Ultra, which is their new beastly model, which is a 49 millimeter style. It's got a round face instead of a kind of more squarish face that Apple Watches have had up to this point. And I actually thought about getting an Apple Watch Ultra briefly, but ended up deciding on the Series 8. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video, but let's dive in. So the Apple Watch, it's very similar in design to earlier models. I had a Series 4 going into this, so it's been a good few years since I upgraded. And you can get it in a general GPS model or a cellular model. You can get it with different types of finishes like your aluminum, your steel design. So if you want a little more durability, you want to go with the steel. There's different bands, of course. It comes with, mine came with the sport band that I'm looking at right here. I actually am using a Milanese loop, which is a magnetic loop. I've really loved that ever since I got one during I had the Series 3 and then I upgraded to the 4 back in the day. I really like the Milanese loop. What I will say about bands is if you want to get a band, odds are look on Amazon or look elsewhere, because the Apple ones, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. The band that I got here on mine, I paid like $10 for it. Apple wants to charge you like $150. No. Now, the interesting thing is I did get the aluminum model, but in the Series 4, I had the cellular model because I thought back in the day, I'm like, oh, well, cellular, not only can I make and receive calls, but if I'm out somewhere and I don't want to have my phone with me necessarily, I could have my Bluetooth headset paired with it and I could stream content, if apps supported it, over cellular. And that has really just not come to fruition. I mean, if you have Apple Music, I guess you can to some degree, but I really don't subscribe to any of that. So, I just did not something I use. I use Google Music or YouTube Music now. I use Amazon Music from time to time. I've got a good library in there. You can download like Audible books and stuff or podcasts, depending on the app that you use, to your watch, but I can do that with the GPS model. So instead of going the GPS model, I thought, you know what, let's save a bit of money on my watch. And going forward, I can then also save $10 a month on my Verizon phone bill, because I took my watch plan out. So now I just have my cell phone through my Verizon here, and save a little bit of money. If I still want to make and receive calls, I have my phone with me almost all the time anyway, so I can still do that. I can still look at who's calling, I can still answer, I can still make calls if I want to, or text, as long as my phone is in range. So the way I use my watch, it's not a big deal. So you got the band here, but let's look at the watch. Here we go. This is the Series 8. I have the 45 millimeter version, the bigger one. I have a fairly big arm, big hand, big wrist, whatever, so it's perfectly comfortable for me. The first thing that you'll immediately notice, especially if you go from like an older watch like I had, the Series 4, it has an always-on display. So you notice that I'm not touching it, and you see how the numbers have they're not filled in, they're kind of like an outline, and I'm in a lighter room, so it's a little brighter, but if I'm at night and if I cover it here and then I lift it up again, it will dim, so it won't be as bright if I'm in a dark area. But I can also turn sleep mode on, and then if I put my hand over it to shut off the screen will go black, and then I can just tap it to wake it up if I want to look at it or do something. And if you don't want the always on screen as a feature, you can turn that off in settings if you want to as well. I did try that actually. I tried going like, yeah, let's save a little battery life and not have the always on screen feature enabled. But I gotta say, it's really simple. There's not much to just, I gotta lift my wrist and then tap the screen to wake it up. But also, it's really nice to just be like, I got a notification, or I want to look at the time. I'm doing something, da-da-da-da-da. Oh, let me look at my watch. Here you go. I don't have to touch it. If I'm doing something with, I have something in my other hand, I can still just look at my watch. Boom, we're good. So that's really nice. I actually find myself really liking the always on screen. The buttons are exactly the same as older models. You've got your digital crown that you can turn or push in. You've got your side button on the right hand side here. I'm using the digital, the giant watch face, just because I kind of like it. And, I can tap and hold. I can swipe left or right to choose another watch face if I want to. So it's just that easy. So let's say you have a different watch face you want to have, if you're out and you're like, well, let's just be all fancy and have our traditional round, clock face. Or if you want to have something that has more complications, maybe the weather or your fitness, maybe you're doing your fitness stuff or something, you could do that. If I swipe up here, you can get, I don't have the cellular here, but you have all of this is where you have basically your control center. All of your stuff is just exactly the same. I have mine on Do Not Disturb, so I don't get any calls while I'm recording the video. But again, you just tap the sleep button or tap and hold, and you'll get a menu, and that's where you can say Do Not Disturb, or you can say Sleep. Because if you do sleep, it will turn the display off when you're not looking at it. And also, in the latest version of watchOS, you do have extra sleep tracking if you want to do that. So what I will say is the performance. I was starting to notice my Series 4. I was going to hold off another year, and then I'm like, let's try. There's a couple things that made me want to upgrade. And unfortunately, one of them didn't quite turn out the way I wanted, which I'll talk about in a moment. But what I will say is going from the Series 4 to the Series 8, the performance is definitely a lot better. A lot of times I don't have voiceover on because I don't want to bump it and have it yammering at me. But all I got to do is triple tap the crown. And we got voiceover is on. See, that didn't take long. Let's see if I have any notifications. I do. Okay. We've got a notification from Twitter. Another Kindle. I don't know why that one isn't speaking. Speaketh. Oh. Nah, don't care. So it's that easy, Again, I can flick up with two fingers. I swipe. It's very simple. I like that you can adjust the text size right from this menu here. If you want to have the text size a little bit bigger, if you have low vision. You've got if your crown, you bring up your list of items. You can either do the honeycomb thing, which is default. I have mine, I switched it to the list, which I like way better. Makes a lot more sense to me. But I can... flick there. I mean, like I said, largely nothing has changed as far as functionality. If you know how an Apple Watch functioned previously, it's exactly the same. A couple new features that this one does have, like I said, with and this does support older watches too, but it has the improved sleep tracking, and if you will start noticing if you use it for like 5 nights in a row, and then the health app will kind of start letting you know, like, oh, here's some trends, here's how well you were sleeping, when you weren't sleeping, if you want to dig into that type of information. There is a new temperature sensor on the watch, and originally this is what I was sort of excited about, but it turns out it doesn't work the way I wanted it to. You know, you think about the last couple of years in the pandemic, and you know, you go somewhere, I know a lot of schools were doing this, where you would use those little, you know, those little thermometers that you point at someone and it's supposed to take their temperature. And I've kind of found those to be rather sketchy, shall we say, as far as accuracy. You know, sometimes you can get pretty accurate, and sometimes it just seems, whoa, that's way off. So my thought was, well, an Apple Watch can't be less accurate than one of those. Turns out you cannot, at least currently, you cannot take your temperature manually. So, you know, if you have a fever or if you're not feeling well, you can't just be like, oh, what is my temperature? The only way this seems to work so far is it's tied to sleep. So this is where you have to track it like 5 nights in a row minimum, and then it tells you your temperature differences. And it can tie into like, oh, maybe you sleep better when it's cooler or warmer or whatever. It also has this cycle tracking feature. So women who want to track their cycles and stuff and fertility and whatnot, you know, I can't speak to anything about that. But that's another feature that's tied to the temperature sensor, and that they were really pushing, they were really marketing when they originally showed the Apple Watch Series 8 this year. So the temperature thing is kind of a bummer. I don't know if it's something that they can update in a watch OS later on, or if they're just going to be like, well, guess what? We're going to make you buy a new watch if you want this on-demand temperature function later. Because it's Apple, unfortunately, I could probably see them doing something like that. I don't know. The other thing that it has is it has an additional type of motion sensor, because in the latest version of watch OS, you have crash detection, and the iPhone 14 series also has this, to where I'm hoping this is something that I never have to find out or test, because crashing, you know, if you're in like a car crash, you know, you stop suddenly, maybe you're unconscious and can't get to your phone, or you can't respond or, you know, call for help. If it detects that, it can notify emergency services. It could notify your emergency contacts. So there's some really nice safety features. You know, again, Apple seems to be really focusing in on health and safety and fitness and stuff like that for their watch. You know, it used to be a little bit of everything. In the early days, it was like, hey, look at all the cool things you can do. And there were third-party apps that did this, that, and the other thing. That kind of seems to have been backed off a little bit. Like I said, the cellular stuff really didn't pan out the way I thought it would over time. And even some apps seem to have really kind of rolled back on Apple Watch support. But if you are especially interested in fitness and health and safety and that kind of a thing, the Apple Watch seems to be a pretty decent option. I am primarily using it like, it's a really convenience thing to have for me. Do I need an Apple Watch? No, probably not. But I use it as a watch. I use it as a timer all the time. I do use it usually every to every other day. I will play drums for at least a half an hour, between a half an hour and an hour, every once in a while, a little more. I might do some stretches. I might do some dumbbells, little weights here and there. So I do put it on. There's no tracking there's no fitness tracker for drumming like there would be running or swimming or jogging, whatever. So I just use the other, and then I'll do drumming, which is pretty fun. So I use it for that. I use it for timers. I use it for notifications. I use it for, it's really nice for Apple Pay sometimes. Just, double tap the side button, not the crown, but the side button. And you hold it up, and for whatever it takes Apple Pay, it's great. Our work, even though we're not in the office near as much as we used to be, our work vending machines now take Apple Pay, which is kind of dangerous. So I'm kind of glad I don't work in the office, because it'd be so easy just to be like, I want to pop, or I want to grab some munchies from the machine. But yeah, Apple Pay is really convenient. I've tried the sleep tracking a little bit just to see how it is, and I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but I haven't really paid all that much attention to it. And I'll play with apps here and there, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's a smartwatch, and I just kind of, a little bit of the fitness stuff, a little bit of the timer, a little bit of notifications. I know I don't use it to its full potential, but for what I use it for, it's still nice, it's still convenient. I can afford it, so why not? If people have questions about an Apple Watch, like, other blind people, I do in a tech assessment and they're asking about the Apple Watch, hey, at least I can let them know. There's really not a lot else to say. You have the crash detection, you have the temperature stuff, you've got, of course, your better performance than your older models. I would say if you have a Series 6 or 7, don't bother. There's not really anything, unless you really, really want the newest, latest, and greatest, there's really not much need, I would say, to upgrade this year. If you have, I don't know about a Series 5, but I know if you have a Series 4, and especially if you use VoiceOver, you will definitely notice a performance improvement. Like, I don't have VoiceOver on a lot of the time because I don't want to just keep bumping it and then it'll talk. And I have the large watch face, so I can just glance at it. And if I get a notification, I'll see the icon like, oh, I got a Twitter notification. Okay, I might want to check that. Or, oh, I got a whatever notification, Overcast or something, like, I'll look at that later. So it's kind of a convenience thing there. But if I want to turn VoiceOver on and off, there, it's off. And now it's just normal. Turn it on again. And we're back in business. So when I did that on my old Series 4, it was taking a little bit of time and kind of hanging a bit. So again, just the performance is really nice. I told you that I didn't get the cellular model this time. I just got the GPS version. Now, I did consider, as I said early in the video, I did consider the Ultra for a little while, but decided against it, largely because the original sticker shock of the Ultra is about $800, and it only comes in one version. It only comes in a cellular model. Now, I suppose you could probably use it just on Wi-Fi, like use it like I am my current watch here. Because you can buy an iPhone or an Android phone and just use it on Wi-Fi and just not activate the cellular plan. But yeah, that's a lot of money to spend just to do it that way. The other reason that I considered it, like I said, you have the larger screen, you have the 49 millimeter instead of the 45, which might seem even a little big for me even, but I think it'd be kind of neat. The main reason I was sort of thinking, though, is the battery life. Because the Ultra, you're supposed to be able to get a good few days, especially if you don't do like a lot of heavy like workouts and things like that. If you're just like an average user, my guess is you could probably get a good few days out of it. The battery life on the Series 8 here, I would say is fairly comparable to my Series 4, maybe a little bit better. You can, even if I do a 30 to 60 minute workout, the other workout for drumming, And then I, use it. I do some notifications. I do this, that, and the other thing. I do a couple timers throughout the day. I would say I can get anywhere between a day and a half, 2 days, maybe a little bit longer, but that would be really pushing it. I would say 2 days is kind of a longer estimate on average is what I can get. The newest version of watchOS, you do have a low battery mode, which will save your battery even further. I've played with that a little bit, but it seems to disable a lot of the background tracking stuff that if you want to just, even out of curiosity, see those things. I've just left the low battery mode off. So I don't know. I mean, it's a solid watch. It's nothing groundbreaking. If you've had an older Apple Watch and you know what using one is like, there's not really a lot that's changed. It's faster. It's got a new sensor or two. I mean, there's some features that are tied to the watchOS and not specifically this watch. So if you have like even a Series 4 or later, most everything, minus a sensor or two, you can do on that watch. Because part of me contemplated a Series Ultra, and part of me just debated waiting another year. But I decided to try an updated watch, and I don't regret it. It's fine. I'm a little disappointed the temperature sensor doesn't work. The feature doesn't work the way I want it to, because I would love to be able to just do a on-demand temperature check, especially if I wasn't feeling well. But that is the Apple Watch Series 8. Not a whole lot else to say. It's more iterative than it is, revolutionary or anything like that. But you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. Until next time, I will chat with everyone again later.